Not the other lot, welcome back to the Max Goodwin YouTube channel and something a little bit different today. I have decided to look at some of the just deadest football opinions on Twitter at the moment. Not just Twitter, Reddit, every subsection of social media. I'm trying to find the worst football opinions ever, and trust me, some of the ones I've already found are absolute stinkers. Before we get into it though, if you have any horrible football opinions that you want to share with me through the course of social media, let me know in the comments down below, and there'll definitely be a part 2 coming out if we can collate a good selection of them. Today though, I've found a couple of tweet sort of threads of some horrible football opinions. There's a Reddit page and there's also a couple of articles where we're going to be digging through the absolute dirt, the worst opinions in football out there right now. Before we get into that, please don't forget to drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a single video. Content's been doing really well recently, and I'm hoping that bringing back these react videos is something a bit different to the channel, because I've realised that I've pretty much just been doing FIFA solid for the last month or so. So if you enjoy the content, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. Is the best way you can show any love or support to the channel. Without any further ado, let's get these absolute whiffers out of the way. Right, here we are then. So the first one is a tweet from football_tweet on Twitter. This is a thread of the worst football opinions people have ever heard, and some of them are genuinely trash. Let's take a look. Gerrard and Lampard are better than Scholes. This is the argument that, like, I swear just everybody talks about all the time. It's such a boring argument. Scholes, Lampard or Gerrard. Who cares? Like, all three of them are so overrated. Like, for different reasons. Like, Lampard was an exceptional player, don't get me wrong, but like part of his game was so overrated. Same with Gerrard. And to be honest, Scholes over the recent few years has kind of become a bit overrated. So I'm not even going to touch on that one. It's such a dead opinion. The current Liverpool team are the greatest team in Premier League history. I remember back in like January last year when this opinion started surfacing. Oh my word, what a bad take that is. Obviously now nobody's saying that because of the current situation the Liverpool squad's in, the injuries to Van Dijk, Gomez, Matip, and they're kind of on the ropes a little bit in terms of their Premier League title defence. But I remember last year when people were going around saying that this Liverpool team is the best Premier League team of all time. My word, for me, not even maybe scrapes top 3, maybe. Like City between 2017 and 2019 when they won the title back to back. For my money, probably the best team in Premier League history. Sort of joint alongside like a joint second of 99 and 08 United. Both of them easily top 3. Then you've got like Arsenal's Invincibles, who, to be fair, are a bit overrated, I think, but even they were probably better than this Liverpool team. You've got the City team that won the league in 2012. That was a pretty good team. There's so many better teams than this Liverpool team. Don't get me wrong, Salah, Mane, Firmino will go down as probably one of the best front threes in Premier League history. And maybe Van Dijk is one of the best defenders. That's about it. The midfield is screamingly average for a Premier League title winning side. Awful take. League Cup over top 4. Would you rather take the League Cup over the top 4? I'm not being funny. My word, League Cup is the deadest tournament going, in it. Like, I guess it gets you qualification for the Europa League, like the qualifying rounds these days, but it is a dead tournament. I'd rather finish in the top 10 than get a League Cup, to be quite honest. It's such a dead trophy, to be quite honest. Jordan Henderson, one of the best Premier League midfielders of all time. I'm not even going to entertain that. That is such a... Don't get me wrong, Jordan Henderson is an exceptional player. Obviously, he's captain of Liverpool. He's won a Premier League and a Champions League with them. Obviously, he's an exceptional midfielder, but my word. Some of the players who get disrespected in terms of all-time greats in the Premier League, the likes of Fabregas, David Silva, Yaya Toure, and the fact that people put like Jordan Henderson, pretty much because he's English, it's, oh my word. Ligue 1 is a farmers league. This is one I actually kind of really hate. Pretty much because Ligue 1 is like genuinely a very exciting league in terms of the talent in there at the moment. The way in which the French league is developing some of the best young French and African talent in the world at the moment is genuinely insane. And despite the fact that it's usually PSG winning the league title, Lyon are usually fairly entertaining. Monaco's situation is kind of changing day by day. Marseille, much the same, especially in the last few weeks. You've also got teams who kind of knock on the door, like Lille, who at the moment are one of the most exciting teams in France in terms of their recruitment. And you've always got these great young prospects coming out of France. So I actually think France is so much more than a farmers league. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's as competitive as like the Premier League or the Spanish league. But it is definitely up there as a top. It is absolutely a top 5 league. In terms of just talent on its own, it produces probably the best talent in the world at the moment, I would say, which is my own personal hot take. Let me know what you think of that one. Wow, we've got a few here from this guy, Lee Kent. Tammy and Rashford are generational talents. That's a rough one, that. To be fair, Marcus Rashford is definitely has the potential to be a world-class winger, I think. Tammy Abraham, the guy's 23, 24 now, and he's only just getting regular minutes for Chelsea. That's such a bad take, that. Van Dijk being the best centre-back in Premier League history, that is one of my least favourite takes ever. I hate that so much, because you can't be either side. You have to be either side of that argument, and no matter what you think, it always diminishes the legacy that someone like Van Dijk's going to have. Whether you think he's the best Premier League centre-back of all time is irrelevant, because it's just going to make, if you don't, then it just makes him look like a complete chump, even though he's probably the best defender in the league at the moment. That is just tough, man. So tough. Awful. Here's an absolute stinker of one. This is from a Tottenham fan, so obviously this is something someone else has said to them. Kane is just a finisher. Harry Kane is possibly one of the most complete forwards in the world right now. And I'm not even saying that because of English bias or whatever. If you look at his stats this season, the guy's taken close to 4 shots, 1.5 dribbles, 1.5 key passes. Right now, bar maybe Lewandowski, he's probably the most complete forward in the world right now. My word, what a take that is. That is awful. Schneider deserved the 2010 Ballon d'Or. I assume they mean Wesley Schneider. If I remember correctly that year, didn't he win the treble with Inter and get to the World Cup final with Netherlands? Who won it that year? Was it was Ronaldo or was Messi won it? To be fair, he probably was in with a shout, to be fair. That's not an awful take. Anything Merson says, I can't really disagree with that one. Anything Paul Merson says is just terrible, man. Always has these awful takes. This is one that I've seen a couple of times, not necessarily with the specific players, but in terms of how they rate them. Tyrone Mings better than Lewis Dunk. I've never seen specifically Lewis Dunk as the player compared against Tyrone Mings, but I don't know where this kind of weird idea is that Tyrone Mings is one of the best defenders in the league. He is a fairly okay left back and an average centre back. Maybe it's because the talent in English centre backs has just disappeared off the face of the planet the last few years. He's definitely nowhere near better than Lewis Dunk. I'd take any of that Brighton back three out of Tyrone Mings. Ezri Konsa's quite good. I think he's the one holding that defence together at the moment. But if I had the choice between Mings or any of the Brighton back three, not even close. Declan Rice isn't mustard. That's that quote from Snatch, in it. You won't know him, he's mustard. Declan Rice is a very good defensive midfielder, in my opinion. He is a solid enough defender to work in a double pivot. Definitely couldn't defend on his own at the base for 3, but decent enough for a double pivot. A good passer, an underrated passer, and a decent ball progressor. Don't really know where the hate for Declan Rice is. I actually think he's a pretty decent player, to be fair. Firmino in the same sentence as Bergkamp. Literally no one rates Firmino anywhere near Bergkamp. Rooney is better than Shearer. Wayne Rooney better than Alan Shearer. That's an interesting one. I think Wayne Rooney is probably one of the most disrespected players of the 2000s. Just because the way he was always kind of world class, despite the fact that he altered his game and allowed other players like Ronaldo and Tevez to kind of flourish alongside him. Van Persie in that sort of last great season at Manchester United. I actually think Rooney is maybe better than Shearer, probably better than Shearer. Shearer's definitely the best finisher of the Premier League, I would say. Rooney's probably the better player all round. So actually, I don't think that's necessarily a hot take saying Rooney is better than Shearer, to be quite honest. Right, I think we've had enough of this thread. This thread's starting to get a bit dry and some of the opinions are getting a bit dead. So I think we're going to move on to a Reddit thread from 2015. Should be interesting to see what some of these takes are. Could be quite interesting. This is a Reddit thread. What is the dumbest football opinions you've ever heard? Whether it's from a pundit, sorry Michael Owen, but you're going to take the hit here, or from a friend. This, like I say, is from 2015. So some of these are pretty dead, to be quite honest. Let's take a look and have a look. You have to play proper football for the win to count. I mean, that's just such a weird opinion, isn't it? Like, what is proper football? Like, I guess for most people, that's like playing Pep Guardiola, Marcelo Bielsa, fluid attacking football. But like, Diego Simeone's won La Liga with Atletico Madrid playing really defensive football, and is probably going to win again this year and could win a Champions League. Jose Mourinho won the treble with a really defensive team against, you know, the likes of Bayern and Real Madrid in that period. So actually, I don't agree with that. You have to play proper football for the win to count. I agree with this guy. What does that even mean? That's such a like ambiguous statement. Here's a really spicy one. You need to win the World Cup in order to be considered one of the best players of all time. Do you? Messi hasn't won the World Cup and he's the best player ever, probably. Even Ronaldo's not won the World Cup. Like, how many of like the best quote-unquote players have actually won the World Cup? Pele, Maradona? Did Maldini win it ever? Zidane? Even Zidane's like a pretty overrated player. Like, that's an awful opinion this guy's found. Like, fair play, that's a good one. I know this is 5 years old, but my word, this is an awful one. So you're going to have to read this whole thing. On TalkSport yesterday, so still 5 years ago we're talking, Theo Walcott is the best player England has and should be captain and have the entire team built around him. Oh my God. Imagine actually thinking that. Imagine actually rating Theo Walcott that much. Like, don't get me wrong, he was a great player on his day for Arsenal, especially about 5 years ago when they started playing him as a striker and he actually turned into a half-decent player. Oh my word, though, of actually thinking he was the best player 5 years ago, which is like peak Harry Kane from like 15, 16. You've got Jamie Vardy coming in. You've got Dele Alli during his breakout season. You've got Wayne Rooney still knocking about. Carl Walker, like Raheem Sterling. Was Walcott even playing for England 5 years ago? Jesus, that is terrible. No wonder it's from TalkSport. They talk absolute crap over there. This one is definitely dated. Definitely dated this thread from Reddit. Dimitri Payet is better than Mesut Ozil. Obviously, everyone remembers that season Dimitri Payet had in 15-16, I think it was, where he was like ridiculously good. But also, Mesut Ozil that season got 19 assists and nearly broke the assist record, and would have if he'd had a genuinely competent striker up front that wasn't Olivier Giroud, who was just missing every sitter. That is such a bad take. Dimitri Payet better than Mesut Ozil. Dimitri Payet hasn't even won anything. He's probably won like a French Cup and like maybe like a Europa League or something. Mesut Ozil's won like World Cups, league titles, individual awards, team of the seasons, everything you can think of. Wow, this is a wild one. Ronaldo and Zlatan are going to the MLS 5 years ago. Well, Zlatan Ibrahimovic did go to the MLS. The most boring footballer in the world went to the most boring league in the world. Quite interesting, really. Ronaldo probably won't ever go to the MLS unless he does a David Beckham and buys his own team to put himself in. I don't see Ronaldo ever going to the MLS unless those circumstances are met. Personally, I think he might have one more stint at Man United. Maybe he'll retire like at the very top of Juventus. Other than that, I can't see where else he would retire. He's not going back to Real Madrid anytime soon. That's about it really for him, to be honest. Right, we've got one more article to take a look at before we wrap up this video. This is an article from MSN.com. And there are some interesting opinions on this one. Firstly, Ryan Giggs' contribution to Man United's success is grossly overrated. Not really a hot take, is it? Don't get me wrong, like, there's a lot of respect you got for Ryan Giggs as a player to have played 20 consecutive Premier League seasons and play at the age of 40 in the Premier League and stuff like that. He was never really that good, was he? Like, the only reason he's top of the assists chart with, 160 odd, is because he played for 20 years. Like, on average, that's like 8 a season, which for a winger is like about average. Like, he wasn't a particularly prolific goal scorer. If he's got more than 100 goals, again, it's probably because he played in the league consistently. Like, obviously, you've got to consider the longevity and stuff like that, but in 99, he had players like David Beckham, Andy Cole, Dwight York around him. When they first won the league title, players like Eric Cantona and Dennis Irwin in that squad. Was Dennis Irwin, Dennis Law, whatever his name is, the left-back guy. And even like in the later years, in 08, when they won the league title and won the Champions League, they had like Ronaldo close to the peak of his powers. You had Rooney at the peak of his powers, Tevez as one of the best strikers in the league. Giggs was always kind of a bit of an afterthought, to be honest. I don't think he was that important to them. I mean, obviously he was there, and like having, as a manager, having like a player who you know you can rely on is great. He was never that good, was he though? Michael Owen's goal in 98 wasn't that great. He ran fast and he kicked it. I mean, I can't really disagree a lot with that, to be honest. Like, Michael Owen's goal was good. It was good, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like the goal of the century. Like, it was just using pace and a bit of decent ball control. Like, it was a good goal, don't get me wrong. Not the best, let's say that. Zidane, Ronaldinho and Roberto Baggio are so overrated. I actually kind of disagree with like 2/3 of this, or like a third of this. I think Zidane is probably one of the most overrated players of all time. Never a particularly prolific goal scorer, never a particularly prolific assister. Ronaldinho is like a really weird case of whether he was rated or not. Like, I've never seen anyone not rate him, to be quite honest. And then Roberto Baggio, I actually think is quite underrated, to be honest. I certainly don't think that he's much below the level of Zidane and Ronaldinho. I think there was a period in the 90s where he probably was one of the best players in the world. Going into the 94 World Cup, I think, in America. He basically drug Italy to the final of that tournament in what was quite an average Italy squad. He drugged that team to the final, dragged that team to the final, and they only lost on penalties. I actually think Roberto Baggio is quite criminally underrated, to be quite honest. This is awful, this. Rui Patricio shouldn't be allowed to play in the Premier League if he insists on wearing an outfielder's number. Obviously, the guy who wrote this doesn't understand why Rui Patricio wears the number 11 jersey. It's because Wolves' goalkeeper during the Championship was Carlo Kame, who was diagnosed, I think, with leukemia, and he was the number 1, and they refused to relinquish the shirt to anybody else whilst he was receiving treatment. So when Patricio came into the club, he took the number 11 shirt. I'm pretty sure that's the story behind it. It's actually a bit of an insensitive thing to say, to be quite honest. And that's about it. I think that wraps up some of these absolutely trash football opinions. To be fair, some of them are actually quite good, to be fair. They are actually some alright ones in it, but there are some absolute whiffers in this one. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel, and let me know your own personal worst footballing opinions. If you let me down in the comments below, I'll try and do a second part, or if you know of any threads or Reddit pages where I can find more of these horrendous opinions to react to, I'd love to do a part 2 of this one, because it's genuinely been an absolute blast to record. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you've got any of them. You can follow me on social media if you want, at MaxDJ Goodwin for both Twitter and Instagram. And until next time, and maybe a part 2, I'll catch you later. Have a nice day.